It is now time to trim the mini mugs, and here you can see the size. They fit perfectly into my hand, which is really fun. Trimming something this small with my larger tools is definitely a little tricky, and getting them centered and stuck down to the wheel was a little bit harder. What I did was wet my wheel head just slightly where the mug is so that it stuck down and formed a little bit of a vacuum, and then I could tap center them. I do have video of doing that, so I can post that as well if you'd like to see it. And then I just went in and trimmed the bottoms flat and started trimming the sides. Now, I threw these slightly thicker than I would on average, so I trimmed away a lot more clay. That is one of the things with throwing off the hump. Typically, the base is left quite a bit thicker, and you need to trim a good bit of it away. Of course, that's not the only option. You don't have to leave your pieces thicker when you're throwing off the hump, but I often do, and it gives me more room to play with really fun feet. So these little mugs were a ton of fun to make and very fun to trim, and this is once again in real time because I'm enjoying showing you what the process is like in the average time that I'm working. So I spent just over 2 minutes doing the actual trimming of this pot, and it actually took me another 2 minutes to get this one centered because, man, getting them stuck down to the wheel when they're this small is kind of tricky. And I'm being very careful. That little tapping is me checking to see how thick the pot is because I don't want to trim through them, but I do want to make sure I get as much clay out as possible. I want these to feel pretty light in your hands, but they don't need to be quite as light and as thin as my larger mugs because they're not meant to hold large amounts of liquid. They'll hopefully hold about 2 ounces when they're finished, which means they're never going to feel particularly heavy with liquid in them. I make my large mugs really thin because they hold a lot of liquid and then they become very, very heavy when you're holding them, and I'd rather have the pot feel as light as possible so most of that weight can be the liquid that you're drinking rather than the pot itself. After I finished trimming the pot, I spent a little bit of time smoothing the pot out. I want the foot to be nice and soft, no sharp edges, and the bottom of the pot to be smooth as well. And then it was time to take it off of the wheel and do a little bit of smoothing to it since the pot was stuck fairly hard down to the lip, and I want the lip to be nice and soft. Here it is all smoothed, and now it's time to put a handle on it.